Module 9, Automating Worksheet Tasks, Part 2, starting on page 9-6. Having turned on the macros, enabled the macros in Excel, now we're ready to make one. So let's see what we can come up with. So here we go. First of all, let's show you where there are two places to get to that macro button. And all of this is going to look small, and I'll keep zooming in to help you out. But on the Developer tab, notice we're on the Developer tab, and I've lost my mouse again because I'm in Zoom. On the left-hand side in the Code group, at the top it says Record Macro. That's one place to see them. And then the other one is if you go to the View tab, and way over on the right-hand side, it has a macros group. Yours might be split. Mine's grouped into one, but there I could record a macro. So take your pick, doesn't matter. I'll click Record Macro, and a new window shows up. There are 4 parts: the name, the shortcut key, which we're not going to use, but if you did this all the time, you'd want a shortcut key, where to store it, and then a description of it. So we're going to call this macro, they said to call it add total. And notice that I used this nomenclature, this format of writing where I put all the words together, stuck them together, and put a capital letter at the beginning of each word. Very common in computers. Where do you want to store the macro? If you're going to use it in many workbooks, you would store it in a different place than if you're only going to use it in this workbook. We're only going to use it in this workbook, so I'll choose that option, which was the default. And then they suggested that you type your name as a description. That way it's easier for the teacher to check it. Now we're going to start making the macro. And take your time, do it slowly. Just make sure it's right the first time, you hope, because otherwise you don't want to edit it. Well, you could, but it's a hassle. You might go back and do it again. So take your time, and when you run the macro, all this time won't show up in the macro, only the keystrokes. All it's doing is recording keystrokes. I'm going to type in A9, I'm going to type total, and then I'll click the enter key up on the formula bar, and it's left aligned, oh well. And then we're going to B9, and in B9 we want it to sum them, get an auto sum, which you'll recall is back on the home tab and way over here in the summation area, and we'll click that. And again, we'll click the enter key. Now that's all we need to do to create our little macro. So what we want to do then is stop the recording. We actually, some of the programs have a little record button showing when you're recording, but this one doesn't. So we'll have to go shut it off. I'm going to go back to the Developer tab, and you see that it says stop recording. So I'll stop recording. I'm a little bit concerned that all that showed up on my macro, however, we'll see. Okay, in the next section, we might as well just keep going. Here, let me, hold on, just let me, it's only 4 minutes. We'll add this next section in. The first thing we'll want to do is to delete what we just did when we recorded. And now up on the Developer tab, let's go over to macros, and you'll see that we have a macro called add total, and the options, we'll come back and look at the edit later, but here's the run button. Let's go ahead and run it. And it put everything in there for us. That's it, it's done. I mean, it was just that fast. Isn't that something? And at the same time, let's do it the other way. We use the Developer tab. Let's go back to the View tab, and way over in the Macros section over here, we could view the macros that are available, and it's the same window. Click Run Total, Add Total, and Run. and we did the same thing again. That's all there is actually to creating the macros. In the gold box at the bottom of 9-8, if you have one that you're going to run every time, a macro to run every time you open the workbook to gather some data and put it in here or whatever, they just mention to you that there's a certain kind you can use. We won't worry about it. And on the next page, there's a notation that if you're having a more substantial macro package, I'll call it a package for you, with more steps and more specific things to do, then you can call this your main procedure. In computer programming, those sets of code are divided into procedures. That's the term we use.